Um, I observed my sixth grade math teacher, and there were some things that I saw that went well in his classroom, and then some things that were not to the best of his abilities. Um, went in, I went into the classroom with that main focus of using time management, as I've discussed with him previously, and also using the engagement strategies or multiple response strategies to get the students 100% involved in the lesson, and then his lesson delivery as well. Um, Throughout the lesson, some of the things that he did well was he used a timer for his bell ringer. He did not just let students just yell out answers. He used popsicle sticks in that case. Um, he also was explaining the reasonableness of answers to students. You know, sometimes students it's hard for them to understand the reasonableness of a math problem or math solution. So that explanation was really helpful. He also used multiple response strategies and using whiteboards to show the answer for the bell ringer. And he also used some seating chart to check attendance to help with his time. So some things that he did well within the lesson. Some things instructionally that I noticed and from the lesson was um, he was paraphrasing what the students were saying in their thought process. He explained some of the processes for the bell ringer. One thing with that, I would like for him to use the students explaining. He there's one of the, for one problem the student explained the first step, but he started explaining the second step, and that's one thing I would like for him to gear towards more of is letting the students explain their full process, their thought process. You know, instead of him explaining the whole process of solving the problem. Um, he also uses a video to model multiplying decimals later on in the lesson. And within that video, he paused it at one point, but it really wasn't utilizing the video in the most effective way. Um, when he went to examples after the video, he could have used a different problem. He wrote the same problem instead of a different problem, and without explanation, instead of getting the students to explain since they didn't see the video, they could have explained what happens with the next problem that he was present. Also, during the video is a good instructional tool to use if it's used intentionally. And with that being said, this intentional it pausing at certain points. What are the students' expectations while they're watching the video? Did they have anything to go off of as far as what are we looking for as as the students are watching this video? And that discussion piece afterwards, that collaborative discussion is for the students to figure out, to understand what is happening in the video. What is the instructor in the video trying to get them to understand? Some other things with engagement strategies, he did use the whiteboards, but some students were off task with it. Some weren't all, not all of them were used. So he tried to use the whiteboards, and that was a good thing. But some students were not on task. He did redirect some of the students in that engagement strategies, but they all were not engaged and fully in the lesson. Um, at the beginning of the class, all students, I'd say, it took them a while to get involved with the lesson. And again, back to when engaging in the lesson, the students need to be explaining their thought process, not the teacher explaining their thought process. Also, one thing I've noticed with his engagement is his time. That's one thing we worked on, is time, because that's where students are more apt to get off task, is when the structure of the class period is not tight. And through that, you know, he had a timer for the bell ringer. Class started at 11:37. The timer went off at 11:45, so he was off already 3 minutes. The bell ringer is used for a 5-minute block for get the kids to start this, to kind of get engaged with the lesson. So he was off a few minutes. When he went over the lesson, one of the students kept asking questions, and kept saying he was not paying attention. So I'm looking for what is he doing differently for that student to make sure the student is on pace. Is it because the student didn't understand the process that he wasn't paying attention, or he just refused to, or what is that different instruction looks like for that student? Um, Teacher, when by the time he finished the bell ring, it was 12:04, so 37 minutes of the class went by, and the class is only a 44-minute class. So with that being said, that tightness needs to be a lot more. So 27 minutes of the class period was spent on the bell ringer when we tried to get it to 7 to 10 minutes at the most. 5 minutes for the students, and then 2 to 5 minutes for the student explanations of their thought process to make sure everybody's on the same page and check them for their understanding. When the video starts, the teacher does stop the video again to explain some of the process shown, and once and there was no explanation that the teacher takes out to teach the students to take out the composition books. And while that process, then the teacher starts redirecting seats because they were getting moved around. So again, it's 12:11. We have 6 minutes left, and class is almost up. He finally starts showing the example on the board with 3 minutes left, and then there is no time to do the demonstration of learning. And the demonstration of learning is an instructional strategy used to make sure that students fully understand that concept before the next period. I mean, for the next class period, for the end of the day. So that was not involved in it. My next process, in this is to give him some praises. He's a brand new teacher, so give him some praises on what went well, what we had discussed before as a coaching piece. His time management was a little off, but he did use a timer, and he's starting to use some engagement pieces. How do I make sure all the students in the classroom understand what's going on? How do I get that full check for understanding? He has some pieces that he started to try, but we also have some things he has to work on. One thing that really surprised me, because we had been working on time management as a coaching piece, is that he was doing very well at moving forward with his time management, but now that he has a timer, it didn't go so well. So his time was a little off. So my big question is, how do I get my teachers to stay progressing once we master this concept, once we mastered an instruction strategy or growth area of growth that we've decided, once we master or getting progressing, and then we start moving to something else, but the next steps they're regressing in what we've talked about before. So how do I get those? How do I get those teachers to continually stay progressing? And for me, I think it's just continually following up. And like I said, in that next piece, I will talk to this teacher and say, hey, this is where we were at. Now we're regressing. So this will still be a next piece of looking at time management. We also will still look at engagement. So we'll still move on, but still keeping the piece that you're starting to regress on, still keeping that as a minor or a secondary focus. This experience, as being an instructional coach on campus and sitting there for a whole 40 minutes and looking at it and observing not just my focus as an instructional coach, but observing the entire class, and that the classroom management, the engagement strategies, the instruction strategies, different trade instruction is going to help me be able to coach my teachers. Because when I get into the classroom, when I get into a campus as an administrator and then go into the teacher's classroom, I would like to be able to say, hey, from the beginning of the year, let's look at what we can focus on, and still keeping that coaching hat, because an administrator, you're still a coach. You're still trying to coach your teachers, not just the lead. You're leading, but you're leading through coaching. You're not just a manager saying, or a supervisor saying, you're not doing well. You want to make sure your teachers are able to grow. And as you being as being the instructional leader on the campus, that any administrator is an instructional leader, you would like to go in that classroom and say, okay, this is the instruction strategy I saw. This is what I saw in the classroom. How can we develop you or grow you professionally to where your instructional practices improve, which in turn will increase student achievement? Because at the end of the day, that's what we all here for. We want to increase student achievement. And the coaching piece is a big piece of that. And it's a progression that, as an administrator, I would like to be in the classroom from the beginning of the year and all the way to the end of the year, and see that growth with my teachers, and let them know that, hey, I'm here for you. I want you to grow. This is where I want you to be at, and we're gonna get up there as together. And being a coach now for this year in the campus and the last couple of years in the district level, this has really helped me out to say that, hey, I know that coaching piece. I know how to build those relationships to make sure that teachers can understand where I'm coming from, and then at the same time making sure they understand and take ownership of their learning with the coaching pieces of how do you get all your students engaged, or how do you ensure that all students understand the concept before moving on. Asking those questions make them the teachers start thinking, oh, I could have done this, oh, I didn't do that, but making it be their own ownership and then making the adjustments from there. This experience is valuable, and with me wanting to be a future administrator, this will further just build my skills up with this observation video, and saying, okay, this is how I can better help prepare my teachers and grow my teachers when I become an administrator.